Michael Misa is about as clean as a prospect as you could ask for. What are the Sharks getting with the second overall pick here?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be examining Michael Misa, one of the newest San Jose Sharks prospects, the second overall pick. And we're going to dive into him a little bit more, look at kind of his profile, what the scouts say about him, and more importantly, what's next for Michael Misa as he's his upcoming season is one of the big storylines for the Sharks as they eventually head into training camp. So before we kind of get into it, I know we have spent a fair amount of time talking about Michael Misa, but a lot of that was usually comparing, right, Misa to Schaefer or Misa to Frondell. And I feel like maybe I haven't given Michael Misa the kind of respect. I don't want to say maybe not the shine that I think Misa deserves, because Michael Misa is an excellent prospect. And the more I've dug into him and, of course, watched a ton of his games with Saginaw, the more I feel like the Sharks really have something special here cooking with Celebrini, Misa, Smith, Eklund, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to spend some time just kind of getting to know Michael Misa a little bit more. We'll dig into what kind of some of the scouts say and, kind of what we can learn from that. And then try to figure out what the best path for Misa this year as the Sharks try to navigate his development. So, let's start with Michael Misa, who this year was taken second overall by the San Jose Sharks, playing with the Saginaw Spirit. He's 6'1", 182 pounds. I think it might be a little bit up closer to 185 now. But anyway, left-handed center, second overall pick this year. Played 65 games in the OHL, where he put up a ridiculous 62 goals in 65 games, with 72 assists and 284 shots on goal. Misa led the entire CHL. That's the OHL, the WHL, and the Q, with the most amount of points this season. Michael Misa is a exemplary player, which basically means he was allowed to start playing in the OHL at the age of 15. Like, you have to get special exemption because you're that good of a player. So he started playing in the OHL in the 22-23 season, played in the 23-24, and then last year in the 24-25. So he already has 3 full seasons under his belt in the OHL, which is something we'll circle back with that here in a little bit. He is the 7th player to receive that exemplary status, which is why he wears 77 as someone who's born in 2007 and was the 7th player to do it. That's why he wears 77. So, but for Michael Misa, a guy who has done basically everything in the OHL that you could ask for, right? He's won the Memorial Cup last in the 23-24 season with Saginaw, who was the host team. He led the CHL in scoring this year, was a CHL first team All-Star, was also a CHL All-Rookie team back in the day, was the OHL All-Rookie team, OHL first team All-Star, was the most valuable most outstanding player of the OHL, won the Red Tilson Trophy, of course, scored the most points in the OHL this year, and was also the Rookie of the Year. So he has had a star-studded career with Saginaw, and very much worthy of being the second overall player. Looking at, kind of how elite prospects, their elevator pitch for him, and we'll dive into what the scouts say a little bit more here in a minute, but a dynamic play driving dual threat center scoring with exceptional details, contact skills, and machine like motor. One of the most well-rounded forwards to come out of the OHL in years. They gave him, out of a score of 1 to 9 being like your super duper high end elites, like nobody ever gets 9s type of thing. He rated a 7 in skating, a 7 in shooting, a 7 in passing, a 7 in handling, 7.5 in hockey sense, and a 6.5 in physical, and was received an A grade. His kind of 3 qualities are his engine, that motor, right, where that nonstop, his vision and ability to see, in the chess master, right, the ability to kind of process, think ahead, and just create and just kind of be outsmart your opposition, right? Misa, like when we'll kind of watch my viewings of Misa, like his ability to, one, I mean, he's just better than everybody on the ice, especially in the OHL. But two, just his ability to one, play in all situations and be that type of guy, and that motor, right? Especially for Saginaw, where he was double shifted a lot, like a lot, and just never that compete and never say die attitude. Always showed up with him. Looking at elite prospects and kind of how they have like their scouting polls where they will kind of vote on how they view some of the prospects. He was ranked as the best offensive forward, the best transition forward, the best two-way forward. He's also given the highest floor, so kind of safest prospect. Like you know exactly what you're going to get with him. Number 3 for the best motor in the entire draft. Number 4 for the best straight line skater. Number 4 for the best vision. 4th overall for the highest ceiling, and 5th for the best shot. 98th percentile player with 99th percentile offense when it comes to the tracking, 90th percentile transition, and 94th percentile defense. Looking at Mitch Brown's tracking and like really his ability to create space and create advantages is one of the things that definitely is out of many bright spots, one of his brightest spots with Michael Misa. NHL Foley on Twitter, does a great job using stats to create his own kind of model and stuff. He has Misa as one of the top range, as the top forward in this last draft, with outstanding marks throughout. His scoring rates are just ridiculous. A generation, like his ability to create offense for other players, insane. The defense was kind of like a 60th or 58.5 percentile, really kind of hammered by the minus per 60. So just what you can kind of explain, right, with Misa, especially with Saginaw, who did not have much when in terms of defense and goaltending, and had to play a lot of 7-6 types of games to win. And especially if you saw at the end of the season when they were really running out of bodies, Misa was out there for a lot of situations, and which is, you're going to drive offense, but you're also going to get kind of scored against. But did a good job of, kind of the Corsi against, like kind of limiting shot attempts and winning those battles, but just didn't really maybe get as much puck luck as you would hope for him. And then advanced hockey stats from JFresh, they have him projected as an 87 percentile chance of becoming a star using their WAR method. WAR is a kind of 18.5%, top 18.5% per 82 games, 90th percentile to become a NHLer playing over 200 games with a positive WAR. And then our good friend Byron Bader, he has Misa as a 65 percentile becoming a star player. His is basically as a forward 0.7 points per game, 75 percentile playing 200 career games in the NHL. Like, I think Misa is going to play 200 career games. It's hard for me to imagine Michael Misa not becoming baseline like a good 2C. Like I think that is the absolute base for Michael Misa to become a very good 2C. And the ceiling is as high as you could dream with a player like Michael Misa. So we're gonna dig into what the scouts said about Misa, kind of going into the draft process, and use that as we look at kind of what's next for Michael Misa, because again, that's the big question is, well, where does Misa go from here? So we'll get to that in just 1 second. Ever wish managing money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Great thing about it too is you can work with your partner. So if you guys have separate accounts and then maybe a shared joint account, you guys can keep track of your separate accounts, but also work together towards whatever you guys are working towards. Maybe it's buying a new car, buying a new home, or whatever goals you have. Monarch Money makes it easy. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, before we continue, of course, do want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Even though we're deep into the off season here, that doesn't mean we're still not going to be putting out good content for you. We're going to be deep diving into some of the top Sharks prospects from this last draft. So we kind of doing like one a week for these guys. Plus, we're going to start gearing up for the season, which will be here sooner than you realize. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right, so what do the actual analytics numbers? Great. I love analytics. I love numbers. What do the scouts say? The people who watched him in and out. And again, I've watched Michael Misa quite a bit. Nowhere near a scouts, but like I said, usually watching Michael Misa when I was trying to watch Igor Chernyshov, those two dynamic chemistry right off the bat. So what do some of our friends, people who've been on the show, and some just people throughout the industry think of one Michael Misa? So let's start with our good friend, Bald King himself, Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News. He wrote about Misa: the CHL's leading scorer and second leading goal scorer was simply unstoppable until he was injured in the first round of the playoffs for Saginaw. Misa is one of the most intelligent and tactical players in the draft. His ability to read plays and exploit holes in the defensive coverage or create small advantages for himself in battles is impressive. He's a refined center who doesn't always show the upper echelon skill, but when he needs to bust it out, he's more than capable. Misa's 62 goals and 134 points are historic numbers for a draft-eligible player in the OHL. He's a well-rounded center who should translate down the middle of the next level. Has some experience on the wing. He helped helping win the Memorial Cup as a left winger during the 23-24 season, but his game seemed fully unlocked as a pivot. Shout out Half-Wall Hockey. He diversified his offensive game as a shooter and playmaker when he got more space at center. Misa could be a legitimate top-line pivot. Tony, using pivot twice in 2 sentences. Come on, buddy. Yeah. And like, again, like if we had just got Michael Misa, we would be talking about you got Michael Misa. Like, this is our number 1C. Oh, yeah, we also have Macklin Celebrini. Like, yes, we have Macklin Celebrini too, who might also be pretty good. Looking at elite prospects and their group who kind of puts together their profiles and stuff, and again, Misa's their elite prospects does an amazing job with it. So what they kind of wrote is a true all-around center combining pace, shutdown ability, and a vast repertoire of skills. Misa finished as the top point getter, not only in his draft class, but across all major hockey leagues, capable of speeding past opponents and drawing complex rush patterns in the neutral zone. Misa finds and creates gaps in neutral zone coverages. He drives east-west play under and over a teammate's route, slows down, accelerates, and slips pucks under sticks, always keeping defenders on their heels. Put him in the half wall in the offensive zone. You can shift defenders around, create lanes through coverage, and funnel passes to the teammates cutting into space. Away from the puck, he's constantly relocating from pocket to pocket, reloading at the top of the zone, sprinting behind defenders, playing between them, perfectly fitting the Saginaw Spirit's creative structure. He overloads the defense's ability to process rotations, getting open for scoring chances. Misa's shot rates are high end, but more so than his release. His talent for anticipation and attacking gaps fueled his goal scoring streak this season. So he's got a good shot, but it's mostly brain, right? Like his ability to read, recognize the play as it's happening or before it's happening. And I think that will go a long way in his pursuit to be an NHL player quicker rather than later, because the processing is so high end already that once he gets used to the speed of the game, you're going to see Michael Misa take off for San Jose. Like he's the only elements missing in Misa's projection are one-on-one skills. While he's clever, deceptive, and skilled, he seldom beats defenders with stick handling moves, preferring to orchestrate plays with teammates. While he might not always have elite prospect flash, his highly projectable style should play off at the NHL level. So like he's not Bedard, right? Who Bedard can stick handle throughout a phone booth, and like we've seen Celebrini's skills like that. That's not Misa's game, but I think Misa does a good job of making his line mates better, and especially like we saw that with Igor Chernyshov, right? Again, Chernyshov is an excellent player in his own right, well worthy of being a first round pick last year's draft. And if he doesn't have shoulder surgery / get a sunburn, the Sharks probably never get a chance to draft him last year. But things worked out for San Jose, or seemingly looks like they worked out for San Jose. But Misa, I think is more of those give and go type of players, right? Where he's going to work with his teammates and trust his teammates and line mates to help kind of instead of taking the Superman cape, I'm going to do everything myself. I think he kind of trusts his line mates to help him out and do so in that ability. So our good friend Chris Peters of Flow Hockey, he wrote a highly skilled center with astounding productive season in the OHL. Misa has been picked apart for years as an exceptional status player. He saved his best junior season for his last and put himself in the discussion to go as high as number one. Misa can score. He has excellent hands and an ability to spot plays. He processes the game at speed when he's got his competitive drive going. He can play a physical game to really put pressure on opposing players. He still needs work on his two-way play, but his offensive know-how, speed, and improving strength should have him all put on track to be a top-line player in the NHL. Again, like he's 18. Like he turned 18 in February. So that stuff is always something we're going like every prospect at this age, like they need to put on more strength, right? And that's something we'll talk about a little bit more here in the third segment. But like they're all the like quote unquote flaws are very minuscule. Like Michael Misa is as clean as a prospect as you will see, right? And because of his exceptional status, right, kind of got again picked apart a little bit here and there, but the kid did everything you could ask for last season and more on a Saginaw team that did have some very high-end talent, right? It was Misa and there was Chernyshov and you did have Zane Parekh. Like, don't get me wrong, but like a team that definitely had lost a lot of depth from their Memorial Cup run. So, and a team, especially on the back end, yes, Zane Parekh played a bunch, and Zane Parekh, I think, is going to be a good defender. But, it's like Zane Parekh and is not like known for his shutdown defensive style, right? And still, even if Zane Prick's out there for 30 minutes a game, that leaves 30 minutes of other defensemen out there, and nobody else on Saginaw really had the same kind of defensive prowess out there that you would expect, right? So Saginaw did have to play a lot of 7-6 type of games, and Michael Misa was in the middle of a lot of those 7-6 type of games, driving play and helping to get Saginaw to that 7 type of score. So what's next for Michael Misa? So we're going to talk about kind of what's next. We're going to talk about what we learned from both Celebrini and Will Smith's approaches last year, and how that could be potentially utilized for Michael Misa. So we'll get to that in just 1 second. All right, before we continue with Misa, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no off season. We're bringing you daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, what's next for Michael Misa, right? And Misa is just like, every one of these CHL players right now, where you are stuck in Misa has a couple options here, right? If he signs his NHL contract at any point, he can't go to the NCAA, which is why I think you're not going to see as many players sign their I know we've had a couple 2025 draft guys sign their contracts already, but Misa, I think, is a guy who I think the Sharks are going to be wait this out a little bit. So if he does sign his contract, it's Saginaw or the NHL. And honestly, I think going back to Saginaw, not maybe the best in his interest, right? Because he's done everything in the OHL that you could ask, right? He's put up a bajillion points. He's played it for Memorial Cup. He's, he has done just about everything you could ask there, from a team perspective and from a personal accolades perspective. So I don't expect him to go back to the OHL. And if he did, maybe he gets traded. Saginaw brings in a massive amount of, pieces back, and Michael Misa goes and plays for a team that's trying to win a Memorial or an OHL championship / another Memorial Cup run. Maybe he could do that. I feel like it's a bit of a waste. If he does do that, though, the one thing is next season, the 26-27 season, he can play in the AHL, NHL no matter what, even though won't be 20 yet. Because Michael Misa, in his exceptional status, he's played 4 seasons in the OHL. So the rule is you can either have 4 full seasons in the OHL or 20, and you can play. Like, that's the exception. Those are the 2 kind of exceptions to play in the AHL before you're 20. So Luca Cagnoni got to play in the AHL because his birthday was before the cutoff, even though he wasn't 20 yet. But Shane Wright, is a guy who's just missed the birthday, but he had played so many OHL games beforehand. They were able to kind of, he was so close that they just kind of let him play because they gave him exemption to play in the AHL. Not that I think Michael Misa needs to play in the AHL. In the following season, but I do think the 2 most realistic options for Misa are to go to college, and kind of spend some time working on getting his body ready to play the NHL game. And you're seeing more and more prospects take this route, right? Like Gavin McKenna is, going to be going to Penn State, and a guy who's dominated in the WHL, going to be going to Penn State and kind of get himself ready to go play in the NHL, because you're playing against older competition, right? In the WHL and the COHL and the Q, the oldest kids there are 20. And even then you can only have 3 kids who are 20 on your team. So you're mostly playing against 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, right? You go to college, and most of these kids are between 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Like, you're starting to get into guys who are, older. You're playing against tougher competition because of the age, and just so you're seeing more and more prospects kind of take that route and use like spending time to play in the CHL, and then spending a year or two to play in the NCAA to get themselves kind of ready for that professional game. And I think it's a very respectable route, right? Of you get the benefits of both worlds, because playing in the CHL, the games are, especially in the OHL and the WHL, and like the games are going to be more high tempo. There's going to be more events. You're getting that kind of more creativity that you would expect, that you see in the NHL. But then when you go to the NCAA, it's, the games slow down a little bit. You get a little bit more of the structure. You are playing against kind of older competition. So it's a nice blend of both worlds to get you ready for the NHL. I could definitely see Misa playing a season in college, but the more I think about it, the more I think he sticks around, right? And the big thing for me, so like, especially when you compare him to Celebrini, like Celebrini was already kind of built like a tank, right? 6 foot, 190, was he 190, 195 pounds. And you saw as a 17-year-old, and you saw him dominating in the college level. Not to say that Michael Misa didn't dominate in the OH level, but I think his body has a little bit further to go. And so you wonder if the Sharks take the Will Smith approach, which a lot of people were like, what are you doing, Mike Greer? What are you doing, Ryan Warsofsky? Why are you guys treating Will Smith like, with kid gloves, keeping the training wheels on him, et cetera, et cetera? We all know how that turned out. Will Smith had an incredible second half of the season because they were very, very careful with his development, right? And Will Smith has spent a season playing in college, and he dominated in college. So for Michael Misa, who I think is a better two-way player than Will Smith was at that time, and those were always the questions for Will Smith, is what can he do in the defensive zone? And those are still going to be questions for Will Smith, is his play in the defensive zone, which has improved. And not to say Michael Misa isn't going to have his issues in the defensive zone, and go through normal rookie things, but I think if the Sharks take the Will Smith approach of, we're going to be really careful the first half of the season, right? No back-to-backs, development days. Let him spend plenty of time in the gym. We're going to kind of protect him. Eventually he's going to be our second line center, but for now we're going to let him play on the wing and get used to things here, and just kind of dip his toe in the NHL. And it's a season which we know the Sharks want to take a baby step, right, this season, but we're being realistic, and we know the Sharks are probably going to be one of the 10 worst teams in the NHL, and that's being hopeful. We'll say hopeful. The Sharks are one of the upper part of the 10 worst teams, but there's a very good chance that the Sharks are one of the 5 worst teams again this year, right? So taking some baby steps. Keeping the long view that we see and we saw with Will Smith and his success, I think that's going to be the right approach, because while going to college, I can easily see it. I just think it gets very difficult with the timing, right? Because the Sharks would basically have to make a decision at least kind of midway through training camp to get him on campus at a school right away, and that's without signing his contract. And again, it's not like there's colleges that wouldn't, we would happily take Michael Misa. Here's a scholarship. Here's your NIL money, whatever. We got that stuff. And I'm sure Mike Greer and they're probably poking around, right? Doing their due diligence. And, maybe Misa goes to play at Penn State or one of the Boston schools or a Michigan school, or wherever he wanted to play, right? It doesn't matter. Just go play. Maybe send him to Denver. Go play with our good friend Eric Polkamp for a season. You get the best coach and one of the best coaches in college hockey to coach you for a season, right? maybe whatever. But again, like one of those, the same argument I made for Will Smith, right? Michael Misa getting his butt kicked in the NHL for a year, he's going to be a better player at the end of the season if he did that than, going to play in college, where I think Misa would quickly adapt to college. Maybe there's kind of like Will Smith, maybe there's a couple struggles for the first week or two, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and then he's just, destroying everybody again, right? Very, very for like easy path to see Michael Misa doing that. So, but I do think again, like getting your butt kicked in the NHL, getting used to the rigors of an 82 game, soon to be an 84 game schedule, getting to work with the development staff day in and day out, getting to work with the weights, the strength and conditioning team. And we saw the result, like we literally saw the results last year with Will Smith. So the more I think about it, I think he would have to have a horrendous training camp to basically not be in the NHL next year. And I was always very skeptical. I was always I think Michael needs to spend some time. The more I think about it, though, I think the more the NHL might be the right decision for Michael Misa. So, and especially again with the success we saw from Will Smith, we've seen the Sharks be able to do this well with a young player, and I think they can replicate those results with Michael Misa, who again, is I think is a cleaner prospect than Will Smith was coming out of the draft. So, so we'll be back tomorrow. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.